pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Wojcinski?
Here.
Mr. George?
Here.
Mr. DeCiccio?
Yep.
Ms. Master-Francisco? Here.
At this time, this is our public hearing for Lakeview. I'd like to turn our meeting over to our solicitor, Nick.
We're here at the time and place set for a public hearing on the planned residential development application, tentative approval application of Zacchaeus Contracting with regard to development otherwise known as Lakeview Farms 5. This hearing will also take into consideration the, under the zoning ordinance, this type of development requires conditional use approval, which a lot of the criteria overlap the tentative PRD criteria, so they'll all be incorporated in the same hearing. This hearing is being transcribed by a stenographer, so I'd ask that if anybody will be speaking tonight, that you let whoever's speaking before you finish, before you talk, or else she's not going to be able to take down any comments. This hearing was advertised in the Beaver County Times in accordance with the MPC and the Township zoning ordinance. Would any persons who will be speaking tonight or giving testimony please stand at this time and raise your right hand so that the court reporter can swear you in.
Do you solemnly?
Pardon me?
Nobody else is going to, audience is going to speak?
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give to the cause now being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and so that you shall answer to God on that last great day?
I do.
And I understand that counsel is here on behalf of the applicant. If you'd like to present any items now, you may.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Solicitor and the chairman and the board. My name is John Bench of the Butler firm, Dillon McCandless King, representing the applicant, Zacchaeus Properties. What we have here is an application for tentative approval of a planned residential development situated here in Center Township. It's located in an R1 district. In an R1 district, PRDs are permitted by conditional use. So we'll have a presentation for you this afternoon, principally from registered landscape architect Stephen Victor. Because the PRD is done through a conditional use in Center Township, we will need to and will demonstrate that we meet both the general conditions for the granting of the conditional use period and the specific criteria for granting tentative approval of a PRD.
Keep your voice up, sir. Yes. Keep your voice up.
The Lakeview Farms PRD is on a 37-acre tract. And we propose 83 single-family residential units. And at this time, I'll turn the meeting over with the board's permission to Mr. Victor for his presentation.
Good evening, and good evening to the public. This is the time for a public hearing for us to present the plan not only to you, but also to the Board of Supervisors to think about any public comments that you all may have regarding the conditional use and the tentative PRD plan that we have submitted. The proposed plan calls for developing 83 single-family home sites, but what's slightly unique about this is that the single-family design, who the houses have been designed for, are for the active adult. The active adult is someone who no longer has children in the family. They've gone off to college, they've graduated and gone someplace else, so it's typically the 55 and older group is who's looking to have this style of home, which means that it's a first floor garage, first floor master bedroom, so first floor living on the type of architecture that it has. So it's a one-story structure. It does have 3 bedrooms within that, so on the first floor you have the master suite and then 2 bedrooms besides that. The units themselves are shown here in the rendering of 3 different styles that are being offered by Ryan Homes. Ryan Homes will be the selected builder within this. What also makes it unique about an active adult is that it's looking for a lifestyle in which you no longer have the maintenance of the facility itself. So all of the lawn care, lawn maintenance, will be handled by the homeowners association as part of this plan. Another thing that happens when you are empty nesters is that you generate less traffic. So we'll be talking about that more, but the number of trips that you would generate out of a single-family active adult community versus a single-family with kids community will be significantly less. The site itself is 37 acres, and we've shown on a drawing here the outline of the property itself. This is the 5th phase of Lakeview Farms, therefore the name Lakeview Farms 5. Mr. Zakaitis was the developer of the prior Lakeview Farms plans. In the Phase 4 plan, an access roadway was set aside here off of Stevenson to bring access into the property. This plan may look familiar to you or to some of you from the audience in that this plan originally received its approval in 2007 for the plan that you see here. The 2007 plan called for a single entrance and a loop road, and with 60 traditional single-family lots on the property. At the time of that application, there was also a street connection that was set aside out of Cedar Ridge that would have connected back into this Phase 5 area here. At the request of the supervisors in 2007, that road connection was taken out at the request also of the neighbors in the Cedar Ridge plan. And so the plan as shown here comes to the table with only a single access into the plan. The plan was not constructed in 2007 due to changes that were going on in the marketplace and making it more difficult and less desirable to do a traditional single family. So the plan is sort of sitting there waiting to be developed. In that time, the marketplace has changed as well. There's a much higher demand for the active adult type community for that, and our understanding is specifically in this township, there is not much opportunity for that in the marketplace today. So we went back and looked at it, and we felt that the street layout is nearly identical to the plan you saw previously. Again, you come in off of Stevenson, loop them around, and have the short cul-de-sac there in the center of the plan. However, being able to utilize the active adult smaller lots here, and also your availability of the PRD ordinance, allowed us to then look back differently at the lot configuration on this, and we were able to generate 83 single-family lots. We then took a look at the traffic, and a traditional single-family home generates approximately 10 to 11 trips per day, and a active adult generates only about 6. So the fact that we've increased from 60 lots to 83 lots, the overall traffic impact of this is lesser now today than it would be if it had been developed in 2007. For the record, we have a copy of the traffic report that we'll be putting into the record that documents that, and that was previously given to the township. The boards that I'm going through here, I have provided the supervisors a copy of those drawings, so they're sitting there, so you're looking at these drawings. I haven't referred to these as specific exhibits either because they really are in the overall exhibit package. These drawings come from the tentative PRD drawing set that at the end of the hearing we'll be putting into the record. Now, because this is a public hearing and it's the opportunity for us to put certain information into the record, I'm going to follow my sheet here just to make sure that I don't skip over anything and make sure we put a complete record in as to all that has transpired in the preparation of these plans. As a PRD, we're a conditional use, and the conditions for that PRD are the standards of the PRD. So we want to show you on an item-by-item basis how we have complied with all of the conditions for the PRD and therefore the conditional use. First, the site must be a 10-acre site according to the PRD standards, and this is a 37-acre tract. The uses that are available to us in the R1 district PRD are single-family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and townhouses. As I stated, all we're looking to do is single-family. Now, we're doing single-family active adult, but from a zoning perspective, we're only looking at the single-family. I'll talk in a little bit about some options that we did look at, and the zoning would have allowed us to do the duplex, triplex, fourplex, or townhouses. The allowable density for a PRD is 4 units on the net acreage. The net acreage is the total site, 37 acres, minus that acreage, which is 25% and greater slopes. We submitted previously a letter documenting the acreage that we have in steep slopes, and therefore our net density is 3.55 for the 83 units, below the 4-unit threshold. The minimum lot size in your R1 PRD is 12,000 square feet. Here is one of 2 places we are asking for modifications. In our tentative approval, we've listed each one of the lots by number, and we've also listed the square footage. Approximately 60% of those lots meet the 12,000 square feet. 40% do not meet that, and they're between 9,000 and 12,000 square feet. We are asking for a modification to reduce the size of those, because what was our alternative? If we were doing a PRD with duplexes, the units could be 10,000 square feet in size. However, we could have achieved 90 duplex lots. So the question, what would be better? Would it be better to have 90 duplex lots on 10,000 square foot lots, or 83 single-family lots that 40% would then need a modification to bring us to below the 12,000, but greater than 9,000 square feet? And in discussions with the township and the planning commission and staff, it was the feeling that a single-family approach would be better than a duplex approach. And therefore, we are asking for that modification so we can complete the community with single-family detached homes. The PRD requires a 50-foot perimeter buffer, meaning that all the way around the entire property, we would have to have a 50-foot setback for all structures. And the plan does show that. The dashed line here takes us all the way around the perimeter. And so all units on the exterior of the site would have to be set back a minimum of 50 feet. In most cases, they're more than that. The PRD requires us to have 15% open space. We're proposing that the south end of the site would have 26% of the gross area would be into open space. So we exceed the open space requirement. The maximum building cover under a PRD is 25%, meaning 25% of our 37 acres could be covered with buildings. Because of how we have a size of the buildings that we have, we're only doing 10%. So we're 2.5 times below the allowable maximum building cover. Recreation is required for a PRD. Given the size of the community, it really doesn't make sense, there's only 83, to have a clubhouse or a tennis court or swimming pools and things like that. It's just too small. So in our request here is that we be allowed to pay a fee in lieu of, and we were proposing that there would be a $200 fee that would be paid to the township, and the township can use that as you see fit to make improvements to your own recreational facilities and parks, as these people would be the beneficiaries of that. Next is the PRD does require that you have 2 access points. If you remember, we did have 2 access points, but at the supervisor's request, that was taken away back in 2007. So to meet that requirement, we are asking for a modification. We have submitted a letter showing that the traffic impact of 83 homes on a single access is less than the impact you would have from 60 single-family lots that have already been approved and recorded. And lastly, the developer has offered to make a $150,000 contribution to the township for making roadway improvements in the township. The PRD requires the installation of sidewalks on one side of the street throughout the plan. Again, we think that sidewalks and walking are an important part of recreation. We didn't try to take credit for that, but instead of having sidewalks on one side, we have sidewalks on both sides of the street throughout the plan. So we've sort of doubled up on that. We have also located at this point right here what's called a CBU, Central Box Unit. It's the way that the federal government now delivers mail. They don't deliver to the individual houses, so we have to have a central collection point. We've identified that location where it would not be positioned in front of someone's house. And we've set aside parking spaces off the street there for parking of that to be able to facilitate that.
Some right here.
Yes, right there. And the reason I pointed out now is that it's all connected by sidewalks, so you can go to your house, walk to the CBU, or vice versa. You know, you can get back and forth. So it's meant to be a very pedestrian friendly. You know, the most popular recreation, quite honestly, in America is getting out and walking. So another reason for having two sets of sidewalks.
Are there gonna be lights there?
At the CBU, yes. The stormwater controls are required and mandatory. At the time of the 2007 approved plan for 60 lots, you had a stormwater ordinance that required us to control to the 25-year storm. Today, you have an ordinance that requires us to have controls to the 100-year storm. And so we have provided calculations and have upsized our detention facility to show that we are controlling the 100-year storm. We also have the neighbor's property, the Cedar Ridge property. We have a detention facility right there near lot 542 that currently discharges out onto our property. That facility was designed for only the 25-year storm. We have taken all of the water that will come out of that and run it through our detention facility. So we'll be improving their stormwater controls also to bring it to the newest 100-year storm level standards. The last requirement for a PRD is that you have open space, preservation, and a maintenance program. I talked about the 26% open space, 9.8 acres of property. I talked about the common area maintenance. Both of those require a homeowners association, and we will have a homeowners association that will manage not only the care and maintenance of the open space, but also the care and maintenance of the individual lawns and yard areas as well. Now, the PRD submittal requirements are rather lengthy. I want to make sure that you understand we've complied with all of those requirements. Under section 1606.2 of your PRD ordinance, we're required to submit the following: a legal description, meaning a meets and bounds survey of the property. The 2007 subdivision plat has been fully recorded and is on record and shows the meets and bounds legal description of the property, which has not changed. We're required to talk about the planning objectives and the public benefits that a PRD brings. We've done so in a written narrative called the project narrative, which will be put into the record. But to cover those points, we believe that it is in the public interest to have this specific plan because the use of this property for residential use is consistent with your comprehensive plan. We believe that the single-family homes that we're proposing here will be in character with the other single-family homes that you already have in the Lakeview Farms community. As opposed to what we could be allowed to do would be duplexes or triplexes or townhouses. And again, trying to be in character with what you have before. We're staying with the single family. We're required to have the 15% open space, and we have 26%. We're charged to design and lay out safe access and vehicular circulation within the plan. We believe that we have that here. We believe we have your consent to that by the fact that you approved this plan with its design in 2007. Again, the street pattern is the same. We think that it's to the public interest to have sidewalks on both sides of the street as opposed to just the singular requirement. We think it's to the public interest to be aware of the federal requirements for mail delivery and specifically designing a CBU point that will be of non-conflict with the residents in this neighborhood. And lastly, we think it's in the public interest the fact that we are upgrading the 25-year storm requirements of the 2007 plan to the 100-year storm requirements of the 2019 plan, and the fact that we are also picking up our neighboring properties, Cedar Ridge's stormwater, and bringing that up to the 100-year standard as well. Again, following further on that section 1606.2, we have asked for 2 modifications, and I'll go into that in a little more detail, but we have done that in writing a March 7th, 2019 letter. We're required to pay the fees, which we have done at the time of our application. We paid the appropriate application fee. Required to have a location map. The location map was part of the drawing sets. We're required to provide you the tax parcel listing. Turns out we have 60 tax parcels because we have 60 lots here, so we've provided you the listing of all those. We're required to do a traffic study, and the February 4th, 2019 letter from Worcester, which we'll put into the record, gives you that information. We're required to identify all the abutting properties, which we have done on the drawing here, showing the names of the property owners and the location of their property maps, their individual lots. We're required to submit to you a zoning map. Again, on the cover of our application plan set, it shows that this property is in your R1 zoning district. We're required to submit to you a topographic map, which is in our plan set. We're required to provide to you a soils map, which was part of the stormwater management report submitted by Scheffler Engineers. And ultimately, we're required to provide to you a development plan, and that is the document that you see here. This represents the development plan identifying the 83 single-family attached, or single-family lots. Next would be the 2 modifications that we're requesting. These are 2 points that we don't meet your specific standards, but as a PRD, we are allowed under the state code and your ordinance as well to be able to ask for modifications to the standards that you have set. But we have to give just cause for that. Specifically, section 1603.4C, we're asking to reduce the lot sizes for some of the individual active adult lots. In lieu of 90 active adult duplex units with 10,000 square feet, we are proposing 83 individual active adult lots with only 39 of those lots between 39 of those lots between 9,000 and 12,000 square feet. We think that the benefit is that each owner gets their own unattached home as opposed to a duplex, and the township has 83 single-family units versus 90 duplex units. If you agree, then the modification is there for you to grant. Second modification has to do with access, and under section 1604.1, we are required to have 2 access points for a PRD. I pointed out earlier the fact that in 2007, our second access point was given up at the request of the township and our neighbors from Cedar Ridge at that time, leaving us with just the single access. But what's I think important is that the traffic volumes that we have for 83 active adult is less than the traffic we have on the already approved 2007 plan. So, with that, I appreciate your patience, and I will turn it back over to John Bench.
Thanks, Steve. With the board's permission, I'd just like to ask Mr. Victor a few specific questions related to the specific criteria contained in your zoning ordinance. Mr. Victor, related to the general standards of a conditional use application, is it your opinion that the use of this property as a planned residential development will not endanger the public health, safety, or welfare?
I agree.
Okay. Is it your opinion that the ingress, egress, and traffic circulation on this site has been designed to ensure safety and minimize congestion and impact on local streets?
It's not only my professional opinion, but also as supported by the traffic engineer.
And we'll be putting that report into the record. Related to section 1607, the township's criteria for specific tentative approval of a PRD application. Does this application, other than the 2 modification requests, comply with all standards, restrictions, criteria, and regulations of the zoning ordinance?
It does.
Where we have requested those 2 modifications, does that requested departure from the ordinance promote protection of the environment and public health, safety, and welfare, and is it in the public interest?
I believe it does, and I've testified to that.
Are your proposals for the maintenance and conservation of the proposed common open space reliable?
We believe so, that the use of homeowners associations developed very well so that they run quite easily, and we see no problem with a homeowners association doing the types of common maintenance that we are requesting here.
And are the common improvements within the common space appropriate for development of this type, senior adult active living?
Yes.
Does the physical design of the proposed plan adequately provide for public services, traffic facilities, and parking, air, recreation?
Yes.
Is the proposed plan harmonious and consistent with the neighborhood in which you propose to construct it?
We believe that it is, because we are continuing the use of single-family detached homes throughout.
And finally, Mr. Victor, does your proposed plan afford a greater degree of natural protection than if the property were developed in accordance with the underlying zoning ordinance provisions?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll wait till I'm finished, but I would like to bring some matters, documents into the record. Do you want to label them each, or just list them?
If you want to list them out, we can.
Okay. The first will be the PRD application. The second will be the actual tentative PRD plan dated March 5th, 2019. Third will be the project narrative, 3-page summary that Mr. Victor referred to earlier, also dated March 5th. Fourth will be the 2 modification requests formalized in a letter from Mr. Victor to the township dated March 7th. Fifth will be a letter from Mr. Victor to the township dated March 13th, in which he notes that we meet the requirements related to density / steep slopes under Township Ordinance 1603.4 A and B. Sixth will be the traffic letter from our traffic engineer dated February 4th, 2019, which they note that although we technically have more units, actual traffic usage will be decreased over prior iterations of this plan because of the nature of active adult living communities and the type of residents that live there. And finally will be the stormwater report dated March 2019, showing our compliance with the township's 100-year standard. We'll get that all together and hand it to this lady whenever we're finished. At this time, we rest and welcome any questions or comments from the board.
I do have a question. When you talked about the recreation fee and you said $200, that's per house that is built?
Yes.
And next, the price range for the houses will be what?
And let me continue that one step further. Typically, that is collected at the time of the building permit.
Okay,
So just as when someone comes in and applies for a building permit, and they pay that building permit fee, the $200 would be added at that time.
so the $200 would be coming from the applicant, or are you all the applicant? So if all of us come to build a house, we pay that $200 fee?
It's really Ryan Holmes is paying it because they're the ones who's applying for the building permit.
Okay, and the price range for the houses will be what?
We're anticipating,
This is Frank Zakaitis, the developer.
Frank Skodas, my wife Dana, we're anticipating a 279 starting point this year.
Okay,
But it'll be market driven.
okay. That's all, thank you.
Anyone have anything else?
Will there be lights all through the plan?
Typically, we only light the CBU and the intersections is what we do. Each individual home, though, will have the ability to have post lamps in front of each one of those.
If I can add to that, please. It's a requirement in our homeowners association documents to have a dusk to dawn light at each home. I don't think the intersection itself is lit, but every house will have a dusk to dawn light.
May I ask you, is there a requirement for one to leave that on, because isn't that operated by a switch?
No switches.
No, it just automatically goes?
Yep, don't put a switch on.
Okay.
We learned that trick a long
Okay.
time ago.
Okay.
They're generally hardwired into one of the electrical outlet switches. One of the receptacle circuits, so they can't even turn the breaker off.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff?
Just a couple things. Just so we can have on the record an agreement, it'll be in the developer's agreement. The houses are gonna stay one story with the condition of this approval, correct?
Yes.
And then you will establish an HOA, which will take care of all the private facilities and private amenities.
Absolutely. We've already submitted a draft of the covenants, and they were just a draft, but at the time of the final plans, we'll give you the final draft of that and let the township look at that and make sure that it covers all the elements you wish us to cover.
And then it's not going to be phased. This is all one project, correct?
It is one phase.
And then you talked about the recreation fee, $200 per lot at the time of building permit application.
Yes.
And then the $150,000 traffic impact fee will be paid at the conclusion of your final approval, but prior to execution of the developer's agreement. Is that correct?
It's fine.
Yes.
That's all I have.
The loop road inside of the PRD is public. Now, the sidewalks, will the snow removal be done by the home association?
Initially, when we set up our homeowner associations, we're leaving the snow removal, the driveways are all pretty level. So we leave that up to the residents, but they have the power and the ability after a dozen homes are in place to vote, increase the assessment, have snow removal taken care of. I leave that up to them. It's not for me to tell them that I'll shovel their snow or not.
Yeah, but you know, the way it looks on this little map I have is that the sidewalks are in the 50-foot right of way.
They are. Yeah, they
But that doesn't mean they belong to, no.
The same as every other subdivision.
Yeah.
They're in the right way.
Okay, thank you.
Carolyn, did you have anything to go down?
No, all of, Carolyn Yeagle, Township Planning Consultant. The points related to the modifications have all been identified as part of the record, and the Planning Commission made its recommendation to move this toward the hearing process based on all the information that has been presented.
Council, I assume you have no objection to us putting that in the exhibit, the letter from the planning consultant.
I do not know.
Are there any members of the public that have any comments or questions you'd like to ask at this time? If you'd state your name first for the court reporter.
Joseph Morales, resident of Lake View
Sure.
Farms. What's the average square foot of the house gonna be, and are they gonna have basements?
The homes, the smallest proposed home is 1,348 square feet, plus a 400 square foot attached garage. The largest is 1,720, plus a 400 square foot attached garage. The homes from 501 through 511 are proposed to not have basements. The balance of the homes are proposed with basements. The basements would not be under the garage. And they also have the ability to have storage in a small attic. So,
I have a question. My name is Ivan Border. I'm the owner of 212 Stevenson. I have a, and I'm asking you, sir, I have a huge mound of sawdust just outside my fence. When are you gonna move?
last week and the week before, they promised to move it, but we're trying.
That hasn't happened.
I know it hasn't happened. It'll go. We can't do it unless we have nice weather, because we can't track mud on the street. But it'll be taken care of.
You've been there, done that. Yeah.
But the clearing people promised me repeatedly to get rid of it. I'm holding enough for their money that they'll have to do it. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna get it on there soon.
And may I ask you, if that doesn't happen, do we contact you? Because they contact us.
Ned contacts me.
Yeah, okay,
Well, he's bonded for it as well,
okay,
if it doesn't go.
It'll go.
okay.
Jeff McCaglia, I have a question for the developer. Right now, on your plot, can you point out where the existing sewer line runs and possibly where are you moving it? Because I know that was a point of contention when I moved into Cedar Ridge.
It's coming something like this now. And we'll be picking it up in the roadway network, but it kind of cuts across like this and then zigzags up through here.
Well, I know from my property borders the backside of the lower end of that. Down there, yeah. It used to, well, my lateral comes right out of my backyard down to the loop that's in Cedar Ridge. And then it used to, or maybe still does, head off to the left, then down around the hairpin and out where you are currently excavating. I just was wondering if if you plan on rerouting it. There are manholes all down, but I walk that a lot.
There's a pipe run that runs something like through. And yes, that has to be rerouted. There's about 5 or 6 manholes and about 6 pieces of pipe. The sewage that's in this section behind Cedar Ridge doesn't change.
I'm more concerned, I know back when they developed it, what was gonna happen back in there, it took them a while, they had some land issues back there when they put that in and dropped it down to Elkhorn Run. And I just wanna find out what you're doing there, so.
I don't think we're not affecting anything over there. In this area, we're not affecting any of it.
You know where it drops down over the, well, you've changed all that, I can't even tell where that ravine is anymore.
Well, I think you're referring to this line that I
Right.
spoke about earlier.
It's hard to tell because it looks different than it does now.
Understand. But we're aware of a line of sewage, and yes, we're relocating.
You bringing it for us?
We're putting it in the street network.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions?
My name's Neil Nicholson. I live at 210 Stevenson Street. Yeah, that mulch house, where it got to go. Where's the water and sewage getting tapped in?
Well,
Because I live on Stevenson Street, both of us do, at the end. Now, when you tap in for that water and sewage, are we gonna lose water pressure, or are we gonna lose?
well, let's talk about the sewage first. The sewage will be tied into the sewer that we spoke about earlier.
Okay.
And there's plenty of capacity. There's not that many homes on that sewage run. There's truly a lot of capacity.
What's that? Who feeds into that line? What homes are we talking about?
Can I answer a different way?
Sure.
There's currently an 8-inch sewer line that runs down through here.
Okay.
An 8-inch sewer line will carry approximately 1,000 single-family homes. You don't have an issue with.
I mean, they're still gonna have enough slope and elevation
Yeah.
for our homes to drain down.
Yes, yeah,
Oh, okay.
and the sewer authority requires us to build it to standards to make sure that it does flow downhill, yes.
And water?
Well, the water, whenever we built Lakeview 4, we anticipated Lakeview 5.
Right.
And we connected the main in Lakeview 4 back to the main in Lakeview 5. I ran I don't know, 500, 800 feet of pipe across there and tied them together to even the flow out. But yes, according to the studies with the water company, there's adequate water for everyone.
So we shouldn't have no water pressure issues or anything else?
There's plenty of pressure up there.
You're waiting for the roads to dry up?
No, not the roads at all. We're waiting for the mud to dry up back.
The mud?
Yeah.
Well, I think I got a natural spring in my backyard. Well, that might be a problem.
Whenever we get over to that area, we'll
Yeah, because you can see where the tractors are. And if the water never went down, it's actually stayed the same.
it's always been wet through there.
Yeah, I
Through
know.
this section there. Well, whenever we hit those, we'll tie that into our storm sewer system.
And you said those wouldn't have basements, those homes there?
We have, this section through here is planned to not have basements.
What's the reasoning on that?
I don't know who you are, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Michaeline Nicholson from 210 Stevenson Street.
That's probably wise idea.
We just set a section aside to not have basements.
Okay.
And there's,
I didn't know if there was some geological
no,
issues
not
or.
at all. Not at all.
And what happens with the roads after you guys leave? Because this is only one way in, one way out.
Yeah.
I mean, the road's already pretty bad where all the sewer, or water lines and stuff have run across it. I mean, if you have something like a Corvette or something like that, you're not driving down there, because it just, this sunk.
Yeah, the roads within this plan will be constructed to public standards. And the reason for the $150,000 contribution was so that the township could make any improvements that they would like within the existing Lakeview Farms area. So the street conditions that you're talking about, the township will be holding a $150,000 check to make those improvements.
Don't seem to go for $150,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'll have them all up to specs and everything before you. Just to answer the water question, they'll be running flow tests up there just to confirm so we have a document if there's enough pressure. We should have enough pressure. But that'll all be documented. The engineer will have it all certified.
I have concerns with the one egress, ingress, the one way in, one way out. I mean, as we've noticed or we've experienced, you know, if there's some type of emergency or something and something occurs, an emergency occurs, we've got emergency equipment in there, it just, cuts everybody off.
But that's the case now in that development as well.
And you, exactly. And you're talking about seniors in these homes,
Mhm.
these, I believe, I forget what your
If,
term was, but, you know, from an emergency standpoint, you have the likelihood of more emergency vehicles coming in and out.
sure. But from here to here is the only controlling point. Because once you're past this point, you can go either direction. So if there's an accident or anything going on here or on the cul-de-sac, it's not affected. So
Well, I guess my
what your
question is
control point
directed then
is.
more towards the township with the one way in, one way out of McCracken. You know, something happens at McCracken, the whole plan.
The township, quite honestly,
That's-
made
yeah,
that
I heard
decision a
made
long
that
time
decision,
ago
yeah.
as to what that is. I can't speak to what's going on off-site, but I would think that you have not experienced any condition in which that was cut off in the
No.
years that you've lived there.
We have, yes.
Yeah, we have.
Yes.
Frank, did you have something?
Yeah, Frank Fisher, Development Coordinator for Center Township. I think that second access point, I think we put it, there's geotech ground, they can go over that ground from that point through that lot and get in there if they have to, an emergency vehicle. Because when we took that out on the original plan, Billy, I think they made sure that we could actually drive over that plan and get into that plan. You have to look, Ned, I think you have to look to see the original one, but I think that's what they did. When they denied the access point, they made sure that we could get in from that lot, if they had to get in from that lot. So we'll have to check that out. But if I remember, Billy, from the first time, I mean, it's been a long time, but,
Can I just ask what the reasoning was in not having a second access?
That was before I made.
Yeah, I wasn't here, I don't know. Yeah, we weren't here.
Before your time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before our time,
The
yeah.
residents complained that they didn't want traffic through their.
They only wanted one access, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
I was here at that time. The residents both of Cedar Ridge and of Lakeview didn't want a connection. And both sides, it wasn't just Cedar Ridge, but Cedar Ridge and Lakeview both opposed it. And the board of supervisors said, okay, we listened to our people, and they took the second access up.
Stacy McCaglio, Cedar Ridge. Just general question, how long is this project, like when do we feel it's gonna be completed, how long, what time frame is this?
This is, we hope to pave this year, and we would expect, when we pave it, we'll finish all the internal seating and have it all restored, and we expect the home building to occur over 3 years.
Great.
Anyone else have anything else?
Does the towns, do we make them say they have to finish in so long of time? I mean, can they drag that 3 years out to 10 if they want it?
For the land development, you could set in the developer's agreement a time frame to complete the earthwork. The sales of the house, just, they're market driven.
Gotcha.
Are you guys, will you have the house, are you building a house when it's sold, or are you gonna have houses built, then it's sold?
Ryan Homes is planning on at least 2 model homes, maybe 3, maybe they'll do 4, but they've guaranteed me 2 model homes. And what they do is they sell first, then build.
Anyone else? Stacy, anything else? That's all we have. Anything further from anybody? Good, Nick.
Close the record.
We will be going into our regular scheduled workshop meeting.